A race, huh? Well, I'm gonna erase your ugly face. How about that?
Yeah! Take him to school, baby!
No school! No school! No school! Nobody! And I mean nobody messes with Diamond Dallas Page's wife. Got it? No!
I want out of this marriage. I want a divorce.
A divorce? What are you, out of your friggin' mind?
Showed Miss Hancock that no one steals your spotlight.
I'll take that. Thank you very much.
Who are you?
Promo involving Diamond Dallas Page and Kimberly Page. Do you remember what led to that?
Well, it was simple. She thought she was a big part of the show. She thought she was a big star, you know. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? You know what I mean? So, I never had a problem telling the truth, you know.
And I guess he had a problem with you basically saying what was pretty much the truth. That
So get the fuck out.
The Social Injustice Warriors series is not meant to offend, so if you're offended, then refer back to this intro a few times over. Most importantly, the Social Injustice Warrior wants you to remember that his opinions don't matter. They're just the way one cynical asshole sees the world. You don't have to agree, but don't bitch about it. These videos are satiric reviews, and this channel doesn't claim the rights to any copyrighted footage. So stop trying to pull our videos, jerks.
Hey there, I'm the Social Injustice Warrior V Infuso, and this is why we can't have nice things.
I'm mad at you. Why? Because you made me watch Illegal Aliens. You put my reaction in the Illegal Aliens review. And you also put Angela Morosa in that same review, and you did not give me a chance to talk to her. And then, add to it, when she attempts to reveal herself, you say no. When a woman says she will show you her breasts, you say yes and you open your hands. What is wrong with you?
When someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes.
And now we're on to the important topic, what we're all here to talk about, which is the one and only Kimberly Page. See, Kimberly Page is an interesting creature. The character of Kimberly Page is something interesting. You know, some call her WCW Sable. By some, I mean the two of us last week when we thought of doing this video.
Before entering WCW, Kimberly married DDP, also known as one of my favorite wrestlers and your mom's favorite yoga instructor. Coming into the business because she married one of the stars? Gee, what does that sound like?
She was, of course, married to DDP, multi-time world champion, specifically a three-time WCW world champion.
Kimberly Page made her debut as her husband's valet, the Diamond Doll. They remained a nefarious duo until her services were won over by Johnny B. Bad, another one of my favorite wrestlers, though I will never admit that publicly. Too late, just did. Moving on. That didn't last long as Mark Mero, who played Bad at the time, quit the company over the storyline, citing that he didn't want to be on the road with another man's wife, even if it was just an act. And that he didn't want to be a part of any storyline that Jesus didn't approve of. Mark, it's fine. Jesus wasn't watching WCW in '96. Hell, Jesus' dad wasn't even watching WCW in '96, and he sees all. That's kind of his gimmick.
A few moments later.
Come on out, baby! Come on out! Come on, let's go! Let's go! Look out, wearing a sack! Over here, little girl! Over here! Come on!
I don't even like this. No respect whatsoever for this young woman. Hey.
Jesus approves.
Kimberly would then go on to become the Booty Babe, being with SIJW Hall of Fame inductee, the Booty Man. That's right, we did it, we brought it back, full circle, Ed fucking Leslie, guys. Well, the Booty Man gimmick didn't last long either, but that's because nothing really lasts with Ed Leslie. But it's never forgettable now, is it? Kimberly was then denied to the masses of WCW fans for the rest of the year until March '97, where she rejoined Paige, so he could properly feud with the Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth. So now all of this was basically a prelude, because at this point, this right now, this is where it really begins.
This moment from now, from this moment on, this will be the moment.
Nailed it. In July of that year, Kimberly formed the Nitro Girls. And if you don't know who the Nitro Girls are, well, they pretty much were like the Justice League of shaking your ass. So Kimberly was kind of like Batman. Or Superman. At shaking her ass.
Kimberly Page has the weirdest wrestling history you would know. She was a Nitro Girl, and as you know, when you're a Nitro Girl, things can only be positive for you.
But that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
As leader of the Nitro Girls, she danced her ass off to the top in a wrestling company. Being a Nitro Girl must have been awesome, great pay, and there's a 50-50 chance you'll marry a world champion. Although what it did entail was dance routines at the beginning of the show and during commercial breaks. They were also given a considerable amount of screen time. However, as time went on, they also got their own pay-per-view, their own issue of Penthouse. I know a lot of you are Googling. Let me stop you right there. It's non-nude, you pervert, and a dozen hands dropped from their keyboards. But Kimberly would appear nude in a few issues of Playboy, and a dozen hands scroll to open new tab. See, now the weird thing here, and I know that everything has pretty much been weird here thus far, but that's wrestling. The weird thing here is that seemingly out of nowhere, somewhere in between 98 and 99, the team pretty much became Kimberly Page and the Nitro Girls. And more importantly, Kimberly began to get used in a lot more storylines. And much like Sable in WWF, she had no real desire to be given any additional attention. But much like Sable, she was pressured into being an active wrestler. The major difference is that it was entirely against Kimberly's wishes, whereas Sable was pretty much like, meh. Kimberly would find herself in a storyline in which she was being stalked by Scott Steiner. And if you've seen Scott Steiner, you know that that is not a man that you want in your life. At all. Let alone someone you want to be on bad terms with.
Oh my, is that Kimberly? That's not only Kimberly! You're looking live outside at DDP, and Scott Steiner's in the car! Oh my God!
Things didn't get much better for her either, as throughout the next 2 years, Kimberly found herself in and out of her relationship on screen with her real-life husband.
We are looking at Diamond Dallas Page's home when he arrived this past Friday, where he used to live.
I'll talk to you. This is some kind of rib.
It's every man's nightmare.
Eventually, Kimberly would become enamored with David Flair, which I think we can all agree is a stretch of the imagination, even for wrestling fans. David Flair couldn't even stand being around David Flair. I'm kidding, David. You're an amazing piece of history, and we'll get to you eventually.
And through that storyline consisted of stuff that included trying to seduce David Flair and also possibly drugging him to do God knows what, only for David to send Ric Flair in his place.
Well, as it turns out, Kimberly Page offered David her services in a dark hotel room one night, only to find out that it was actually David's father, the legendary Rick. Well, that's rape.
Oh, no. What? Are you kidding me?
Who am I supposed to side with in this scenario? Who? What's going on here?
Causing her husband to call out David for not being man enough for his wife. was booking the show? Oh, yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Which is more than I can say about any of this.
Kimberly would continue to go on to have many amazing storylines alongside DDP. Specifically, when the New Blood storyline started up, Kimberly Page took a devastating guitar shot to the head from Jeff Jarrett, and you thought, oh, this is going to be the moment. Kimberly Page is going to get her revenge. She's going to take that chair, that guitar. She's going to smack it over Jeff Jarrett's head and get the world title back for her man. And she turns heel. She turned heel.
And it was not necessarily good.
Kimberly Page, not a preconceived wrestler, a Nitro Girl, a dancer at that.
Though it is significantly better than Miss Elizabeth's heel turn.
Oh, wait a minute here.
What she wants to say.
I know.
Because she felt she was the bigger star out of her DDP. Of the many, many ideas that WCW thought would have made them more money in this revigorating era of 2000, making Kimberly Page a heel was one of them.
Declaring that it was all about her now. And to further that point, she began wearing shirts and bras and everything that said me on them.
Not, I don't know, making Rey Mysterio Jr. a major focal point in the story. Maybe, I don't know, giving, Buff Bagwell a good title run with something, no. They thought that Kimberly Page was going to save WCW.
Never drew a dime.
You may call them idiots, but I call them idiots.
Hitting her husband Diamond Dallas Page with a guitar, she joined the faction of the New Blood, where it was vaguely hinted / heavily implied that she was sleeping with either Eric Bischoff or Chris Kanyon. Knowing what we know about Chris Kanyon, we'll probably say that it was Eric Bischoff. At which point Kimberly was given even more screen time, wearing clothing and cutting promos in which she declared it was all about her now. A sentiment management clearly agreed with. Following this, she'd enter feuds. That's right, Kimberly Page would enter feuds. Kimberly Page would feud with young Stacy Keibler and Miss Elizabeth. For a brief time, she was paired with Mike Awesome, and that's all anyone could ever say about that pairing, that they existed.
Kim, he's your husband. You should know what the...
Correction. Was the husband.
Whatever.
Jesus, the only thing WCW didn't do with her is give her a woman's title run. And that's because they didn't have one.
All in all, Kimberly Page will go down in the history of the many, many failures that WCW 2000 thought was going to save them. Right up there with David Arquette as the world champion and that 70s guy.
It's funny to see how Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara, that's right, Ed, I didn't forget about you, spent entire portions of their show highlighting non-wrestlers and pretty women. Don't get me wrong, Kimberly Page deserved some screen time at the start of the show and during Page's matches, but Jesus, what was the point of most of this?
All in all, my name is Black Friend Allen. If you guys want to see more content like this, please like and subscribe. Join the channel. Join our family. We need to keep the lights on in here, man. Help us out. I'm Black Friend Allen. Not just your black friend, but everybody's black friend.
So I'm Social Justice Warrior V Infuso, and this is Kimberly Page. You're welcome. And if you like the words that came out of my mouth, well, then don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you didn't,
you are gonna feel the bad!